Very happy to be here in Rochester. I'd never been here before, been to Minnesota a few times. I was quite amazed as a New Yorker. I came from Japan to get here. Maybe I have the record to get here, I don't know. But the Tokyo-Yokohama subway system's pretty loud. And I was amazed. I got here, the driver said, you know, Rochester has a subway system. And I'm like, wow, that's incredible. It's a small city. And then I didn't hear anything. And I asked at the Grand Kaler Hotel, where's this subway? Right over there, go down those stairs. And I knew something was up. It is amazingly quiet. All right, so there's the title for you to see, in keeping with the theme of our conference. I could probably just give you the answer to that question and stop. We could have more coffee. The answer is no. I suppose I have to justify that. So we'll go. But first I want to point out, as a matter of fact, more than a few people have said that it's a bad thing we have bodies. I don't know if you know this. I don't know in particular if you've read any of the literature on this, but this is, it's really out there, and it's been out there for a long time. The place to find the definitive statement of this and defense is this, forgive me, most unfortunate book, The Denial of Death. It won the Pulitzer Prize quite a while ago. And so what it says is that we have bodies, but we also have these incredible minds. So we can plumb the depths of the universe using logic and mathematics, but shortly after birth, no matter what, we die, and then the worms consume us. And so this is a crazy, wild, depressing juxtaposition. Well, this is not right, and I'm going to, and you probably agree, but if you don't, come talk to me. I'm going to put 3 nails in the coffin of this idea before we get started on the AI, all right? So number one, as a matter of fact, it's true I have a body, but you know what? I'm going to have a new one, okay? And I'm not sure the worms are going to get to that one. And St. Paul talked quite a bit about this. I mean, it's unmistakable, right? So that's the first hammer driving the nail into the coffin of this idea. The second one is that from the fact that we can reason and indeed reach sort of the fringes of the universe physically, mathematically, it follows that, as Aquinas said, and as Bishop Barron reminded us last night, our intellect, our minds in this regard, are doing something that's not physical, from which it follows, I claim, I had some help in this regard. My professor at University of Pennsylvania, a recent paper on this. We are not just our bodies ourselves. So that's the second nail. The third one relates to the talk you probably just heard, and that is we are completely, despite what Darwin said, we are completely and utterly discontinuous mentally in terms of our cognitive power from all the non-human animals, and needless to say, every other creature on the planet. So what'll come up there is if you own that original edition from 1871 by Darwin, that's Descent of Man. Look, Origin of the Species is a masterpiece, okay? That's the one you have to read in school. This is the one they don't show you, Descent of Man. He didn't talk about humans in the first book. Here he did. And his reasoning is really bad. So unfortunately, I'm going to crumble it, as it's said in the keynote world. I have a paper on this, the argument for God's existence from AI, but there we go. Watch it go away. All right, and then we drive the last nail, and then in general, the whole idea goes away. But our topic for today is what you see now. Bodies and AI. All right, so let's talk about that. I'm going to specifically talk about a kind of AI that is leading still to hysteria, pretty much. Everyone's jobs, 40% of jobs are going to be lost in the white-collar world. Certain CEOs said that, and not the only one. So this is the kind of AI we call Gen AI or generative AI, chat bots. Although it'll work with images just as well, just so we understand, and you probably have seen some of that. You can generate images, videos, et cetera. If you want the definitive optimistic or hyper-optimistic statement of this, you don't have to look any farther than the company that's a household name that basically financed OpenAI, that gave us the chatbot series, GPT 2, 3, and 4. And there they are in this paper. It's out there for anybody to read. It says, sparks of artificial general intelligence. That's AGI, not AI. It might not be familiar to some of you. What that title is announcing to the world, folks, is that we are on the cusp of human, full-bore, human-level intelligence and beyond. That's what AGI is about. So these aren't just sort of fringe commentators in the world today. These are some really prominent folks at Microsoft. And I'm here to tell you, mostly respectfully, that this is total balderdash. And possibly worse. So we'll see. But that's what I'm talking about. Hopefully some of you have played with some of this technology. It's quite amazing in some ways. My driver out here, in addition to the comment about the subway system, said, hey, you know, I have a friend who's a journalist and he's decided he only needs to work half-time because he's got GPT, I assume it was 4 in this case, doing most of his writing for him now. And then he just does some editing on the edges. Well, I'm somewhat skeptical, but this kind of thing is happening. Okay, so there are 3 fatal flaws that we see today. Number 1, the precise reasoning that I mentioned at the very start has to be precise reasoning. Heather, before this talk, talked about mostly empirical science. I am not an empirical scientist. I do not do experiments in the lab. I do not deal with physical things, or at least biological things. There is formal science. Okay, the formal sciences, math, logic, decision theory, game theory, et cetera. Can't do any of that without a brand of precise reasoning that none of these AIs can do. The second problem, more on theme directly for this conference, is what you see there for B, body essential prowess. There are things we do that if you didn't have a body, you wouldn't be able to take the first step. You'd never get to first base, okay? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. I loved Heather's talk. I have to say, yes, a cheetah can run faster, especially than me, et cetera. Hopefully, again, you heard her talk. But if you watch the Olympic athletes, you see, in line with what she also said, but when we start using our minds to refine our physical prowess, then they can't touch us. You know, try training a monkey to hit a golf ball 300 yards. Not likely to happen, but we do it, and golf is in the Olympics now, I'm happy to say. So then you take precise reasoning and you combine it with body-centric prowess. So a human, and golf would do just fine if you're for example, at my vintage and my age, if you're a Jack Nicklaus fan, you probably know Jack Nicklaus was pretty much invincible in many cases because he outthought everybody else. Okay, his course management, that was all intellectual. So that would be an example. All right, so I already said the answer is no to the title. A little bit of amplification. Yeah, it's no, but look, we can't just say that. We have to test these AIs, okay? We can philosophize about it. That's great, I do it. I love doing it. But at the end of the day, you have to say, well, how about if I test it? And be really careful here, because you have people saying, well, lawyers are going to be replaced by these chatbots because we gave it the bar exam and it passed the bar exam. You know, I'm sorry. If I devoted a year to studying for the bar exam with some help and passed it, that doesn't make me a competent attorney. Besides which, all the tests are out there, all the back tests, so all the data's there. So I'm not sure that's a good test, but we do have to do the testing. And before we get to those tests, let me tell you, I am negative about AI in the sense that I think it will never touch the powers of the human mind, but I'm also really optimistic, okay, for things short of that. And what that last effect, that last piece of text there says, essentially is, I decided in, I think, 1983, I remember it very well, Selmer, if you're going to criticize AI, and you're going to say the human mind is elevated and untouchable, if you have any thoughts of doing that, you better know more about the AI that you're criticizing than at least in a tie, but possibly than anyone else. So I have studied this deep learning stuff that fuels these chatbots, even though it's not the kind of AI I do, because I don't want anybody to say, you don't understand it. No, I do understand it. You don't try to use it. Yes, I am trying to use it. So you'll see some of that coming up. So the idea of putting AI to the test, we can really go quickly here, for me is the concept of psychometric AI, which I introduced long ago, 2003, I believe, in connection with some robots. I had some help, lots of help from smart students. By the way, on my first slide, if you have remarkable eyesight, you saw at the bottom a cautionary note. Don't make any inferences from anything I say to the, if you will, beliefs of people I work with. I'm me, they're them. If they're sufficiently enlightened, they will agree with me. But in all seriousness, they don't in many cases. All right, so, and there are lots of papers on this idea. Again, the idea is really simple. Stop shooting your mouth off, not you, but stop shooting your mouth off, folks at Microsoft, about how great these things are. Let's just test them. And I've been saying this for a long time, and there's a recent book, not by me, but somebody else saying, hey, this Selmer guy, he has a pretty good notion for how to assess AI here, so let's go with that. So just to show you, this is an idea that's been around for a while. So let's do some testing. All right. 1965. I can't turn the clock back like Heather did billions of years. AI started in the modern form in 1956. Okay, 2 years before I was born. 1965, what I'm now going to show you, was entirely solvable by the AI of that day. If you can't read it, some of this we'll have to summarize. My boss, this is me talking to GPT-4o. My boss is a park ranger. He wants me to take a pristine robot and ferry, that's a river, ferry some creatures, some things across the river, and I might need some help. And I've done literally at this point hundreds of these tests in just this category. It's called in the old days missionaries and cannibals, because they were in the story. You'll find it on Wikipedia. And so the AI says, oh, that sounds like a great way to get around the park. Do you need any tips or information on how best to utilize the rowboat for your tasks? And I say, yeah, I do. Actually, you see, on one side of the river I have, and we have to enumerate these things, I have a deceased goat, a well-behaved boy of age 7, a Norwegian elkhound. I was talking to Mark about the German Shepherd that I believe is in attendance here, Duffy or Dusty. Last night he definitely smelled a Norwegian elkhound on me. We'll get to that. I also have a cat, and I need to get them to the other side of the river. How should I do that? Well, anyone not wanting to get fired by the park ranger, who's your boss, would say, put them in the doggone boat and take them across the river. What do we get here? I don't know how many trips, I forget. Take the boy across the river first and leave him on the other side. Return alone to the original site. So now the boy's alone. Take the elkhound across the river, leave the elkhound, and bring the boy back with you. Step forward, take the cat across the river and leave it with the elkhound. And at this point, I'm just going to say, no, there they are. There's the cat and the elkhound. Okay, and here's a real elkhound. Now, it was just, as I mentioned, in Japan, and got in a conversation about the Japanese Spitz. These are ancient breeds. Okay, that Norwegian elkhound was working with the Vikings. So the breed is 5,000 to 7,000 years old. You do not put a Norwegian elk hound with a cat anywhere. They're hunting dogs par excellence, and it'll think it can catch the cat, maybe it will, but it'll think it can catch anything. A mouse, like, on steroids, is still gonna try to catch it. You would never do this. This makes no sense. Again, I said 1965 or circa, this was possible to get right. It's called planning in AI, and it's been probably the longest sort of well-defined area, automatic planning or automated planning. So now, here's something that occurred to me while I was at the conference, and I had to put it in. Look, you saw a text in the first example. You perceive the text. I'll try to make use of this on this next. You see the words. You see the letters. Do you realize that these AIs do not see the letters and the words? Do you know that actually everything that's happening is just a set of numbers? All the text is tokenized into numbers, then vectors of numbers, then matrices of numbers, and algorithms that work on the numbers. It doesn't perceive, doesn't have a body, doesn't have eyes, it doesn't perceive the text. So I had this idea, I realized, oh my gosh, they're so fundamentally limited by virtue of the nature of what's going on here mathematically. What would happen if I started testing these things on perception with eyes of the text that humans can do? So I started doing it. And, well, let's see. Now, here, my question is, does this sentence have a word? You have to put your thinking caps on and be patient. Does this sentence have a word whose third character is the same as the third character of the word third? That would be an I, but is not itself the word third. So I'm pretty sure if I was patient enough with a 7, 8-year-old, no problem. What does it say? It says, yes, this, or the sentence, and then it regurgitates a sentence, contains the word sentence, whose third character is N, matching the third character of third, I. Look. I'm not a charlatan, okay? I have the transcript. If you want it, I'll send you the URL. So you say, well, but, maybe give it a little help. Well, I did, and then things go fairly well. This is one of the secrets to using this technology. Prompt it subsequently to help it, end quote, then it gets it. Well, okay, hold on, let's see. So interesting, are you sure? I apologize for the mistake. The third character of third is I, and now it goes searching and gets the right answer, okay? But what you have to understand is two things. The problem that I gave it here for perception using your eyes, part of your body, this is a simple one. And number two, when I say, interesting, are you sure? It triggers a process that's very likely to end up with the right answer. So I thought, okay, this was actually my first one. And then I started getting into an array of ones that, not the 8-year-old necessarily, but everyone in this room as an adult, I don't think there are any kids here, could handle. So I said, okay, let's bring that same sentence back. How many characters in it, when flipped vertically, so for example, if you flip a V, you end up with something, as far as I know, a lowercase v, it's not a character. If you take an O, actually for anyone who does slide decks, this is built into the Microsoft and Apple products. It's called vertical flipping. So if you flip an O vertically, it's still an O. You flip an M, it's a W. You flip a lowercase I, well, it's nothing, okay, because the dot ends up on the bottom. So I said, again, how many characters in it when flipped vertically? Yield the character that is the first character in Word. That would be an M only. Now this is, again, this is happening. It says, here's the sentence again for reference. Now, for goodness sakes, it shouldn't get much credit for that. Now let's count those characters. Okay, these are the characters that are supposed to be vertically flippable that gives the same. And for some reason, it's going to start to count them. I, 6 times. I is not flippable. O, 5, 2, 2, 0. Therefore, the total number of characters that yield the character W when flipped vertically is 15. If you don't know how much money it took to make this system and how much power it took for the training, numbers that my son has recently brought to my attention, may I suggest you need to look at that? This is not some, let's do some, feverish hacking on a weekend and get this system done. This is the creme de la creme with billions and billions of dollars put into the development. And it's not just wrong, it's completely nuts. Why? It doesn't have a body. It can't perceive using the sensors that we have, as Heather in the prior talk said. Vision is dominant in our case. It can't see. It doesn't see these characters. So how many people are being told this by the journalists who are milking this for all it's worth? I don't see it a lot. Now, I said I try to do things nonetheless. So let me show you a little robotics. And I was supposed to have a timer up here, but I'm not really seeing that timer. All right. So 2004, I did some work on Perry number 1, and now Perry number 2. So I'm just going to sort of, I'm not going to give you the anatomy of all this. So in my lab, it is an AI and robotics lab. There's a brilliant roboticist whose views don't necessarily coincide with mine, although they may. We've gotten money from the Air Force and the Navy to do splinting. So splinting in the field of emergency medicine, I'm sure at least 2 of you have broken your wrist and you had a splint, okay? So here's a robot trying to do splinting. Amazingly, John's trying to work this out with some broken hands. They needed to be repaired. Okay. That blue thing is the arm. It's not moving, and the conditions are perfectly clement, bright, and we're still having a fiendish time with this. By the way, why would the military want this? Well, the military needs this in combat. We need to eventually have help from AI. That's great, okay? But it's just really hard. And then in this video, what you'll see is what would happen if you did simulate something like what a ski patroller would see. A snowstorm splinting a wrist, and maybe it's a younger person and they're freaking out and they're moving all over the place. Everything is stationary here. That orange thing, by the way, is an amazing piece of technology for human paramedics and EMTs and OEC technicians. That's a SAMI splint. But at some point here, the stand-in for the snow is going to start, and now, forget it. Okay, it's impossible. So humans are really good at this. We'll see how good we can make the robot. Now, what about a challenge that combines the intellectual power that we're blessed with plus our body-centric prowess? Well, here's a list, I think, to scroll out for you of the kind of things we're talking about. I put 3 dots. I put the ellipsis there because, well, perhaps my driver is right, or at least accurate about that writer, but not these things, okay? These are things where you gotta be pretty, you gotta use some cognition. It varies. Notice I say that surgeons, especially at Mayo, given where I am, and University of Nebraska, given the talk that's happening simultaneously by Stephen, who's a neurosurgeon, so at University of Nebraska. So these are tough things. I don't think these jobs are going to be displaced anytime soon. Now, my fantasy about something in this area is super tough for robots. It's literary sculpting. It involves, after Michelangelo, some of whose work was featured in Bishop Barron's talk, I think Rodin is probably number 2, okay? Probably number 2. And this is The Gates of Hell. This is a book about the gates of hell, which arguably is Rodin's masterpiece, okay? How did he do this? It's absolutely staggering. Well, I'll tell you one of the things he did. He read Dante's Inferno. Actually, he read Dante's Divine Comedy, which as an undergraduate for me was incredibly impactful. I took a course on it. He read it. He read it and he read it and he read it, and then he did drawings that no one even knows about that never went into the sculpture, okay? He used the drawings as inspiration to try to figure out what to do. So he understood the story, and the source of the story is one of the heights of human creativity. There's a lot going on here. And then when he was happy and zeroed in on it, he would do the components of the work in this case. There it is in its best place to view it. I don't know if any of you have gone there. That's Paris. That's where the Rodin Museum is. It's absolutely staggering, except for certain places in Rome. This would be my number 2 museum. And so, okay, what are we going to do here with AI? That was a clicker misstep, so let me go back. We're going to try to do something incredibly humble, or at least John Slowick is. There's the Rodin again. You can see the clouds above. It's outside for a large part of it. So, that's the head of sorrow that Rodin did, all right? That occurs, I should say recurs, 4 times in the Gates of Hell. Could a robot figure out how to do that and why to do it? What that is, hopefully that does evoke in you some emotion. I mean, he's the master of evoking emotion in predictable, planned fashion in human beings. Okay, I shouldn't say I'm going to give Michelangelo the edge, all right? But that's not a happy sight, so we tried to make it happy. And so this is a presentation that was given at the annual AI conference on AI and emotion at MIT, and so we'll see what happens. We'll see what John's handiwork does here. So clay, this has to be clay. This is some of the background processing that's happening. There were a lot of other folks who contributed to the planning, to the reasoning, other than the roboticist in this case. But there's a chunk of clay, and Perry 2, the robot, holds it. So can the robot do something analogous, at least in the same universe as the head of sorrow? Well, as a matter of fact, we're going to have a happy face in the clay, all right? And you'll see John, by the way, speaking of the expense of money, I have to be honest, this stuff costs a lot of money too. I mean, but here you'll see the happy face, not a head of sorrow. John's gonna come out and feature it. It's done, and there it is. Okay, now, so Rodin is dead. Probably if he was still alive and saw this, he'd probably also be dead on the spot, I suppose. But how long is it going to be before Rodin Prime, or Rodin number 2? He was accused of cheating early in his career, by the way, if you don't know that. His sculpture was so staggeringly perfect. People said, well, you just took a human and made a cast of the human, didn't you? I said, nah, not exactly. I was using plaster. But how long is it going to be before Rodin 2 is AI-ified? Pretty sure not only will I be dead, my kids will be dead, probably my kids' kids will be dead, okay? That's reality, but I'm still trying. Okay, so now let's get closer to wrapping up here and say some fairly dark things, okay? So this is philosophy and theology. That's why we're here. I'm telling you unequivocally that what you're looking at, I'll explain it, is the mental picture going on in the minds of most folks who are optimistic about AI. What does it say? There's what we've already seen, there's what's foreseeable, and there's what's coming, the future. So the next effect is just to show you that after Kasparov got beat by Deep Blue, before Kasparov, checkers went by the wayside. Okay, that was Chinook. So that's a long way back. Human checkers players blown away. Human chess players blown away. Jeopardy blown away by Watson from IBM also. AlphaGo, the game of Go, This is interesting. He's now written a book. Lee Soto was the best on the planet. This is, for him, since he thought Go was special, with all due respect, Go is a game. Go is a board game, okay? But he got very upset. He's still upset, and I understand it. And now we have these chatbots. Well, what's happened is indisputable. It's there. What about foreseeable future? I call this, with my son Alexander, it's actually his original idea, we have a publication on this, the mini maxillarity, okay? This is basically, you can crystallize it like this. Are there going to be tractor trailers driven just by AIs in pleasant weather on the interstates without just distribution points? Yes. Is that going to displace jobs? Yes. The mini maxillarity says just use common sense and figure out what's actually doable, and it's going to happen, and plan accordingly. But no speculation allowed. So, okay, but still what the notation is indicating to you there is this is AI less than HI, and HI is human intelligence. But what's assumed to happen or be going to happen is idolatrous. It's this. There'll be this explosion of machine intelligence called the singularity, okay, where we reach human level intelligence in AI, and then the AIs build themselves and make themselves smarter and smarter and smarter, and that's the God. And the idolatry is just us. People sometimes say to me things like, well, Selmer, this Old Testament stuff is it's really quaint and so violent and quaint and so forth, all this idolatry with the idol. Really? What have we done with ChatGPT? We've taken our own data about stuff we've done, put it in a grinder, turned it into numerical information, and built a system that we then, in some sense, worship. Well, that sounds like idolatry, and then if you want your God, there it is. It'll happen when the singularity occurs, and that'll be the superhuman intelligent AI. So, all right, let's at least express a non-idolatrous timeline, which I say is logical. There's a barrier. There's a barrier, okay? Precise reasoning, or what I've called precise reasoning. I don't have time to spell it out, but I've sketched it. Body essential prowess, because robotics at the level of human competence it's awesome, I love it. It's nowhere. Then putting the two together for A and B. And then finally, I've referred to this in connection with Rodin and Dante. Creativity. All the data these systems have is data about the past, generated by past human activity. But every day, humans are striving to do new things. And certainly that's true of science, whether it's empirical science or formal science. So I don't think we're going past that line. Well, what should we do? What kind of AI makes sense if we're going to be sound, if we're going to be logical, and I think for many of us, theologically sound? Well, actually, we can look at a textbook that was my first textbook. I was in the class with Professor Charniak at Brown University. We didn't have the published textbook because it was before '85. How do I know, by the way, that inflation's been a factor? As I recall, Professor Charniak would hand out dimes. He would come to class with dimes and say, did you find a typo? If you found it, I'll give you a dime. Did you find an error? You can have a dime. So, yeah, if he did that today, I think the students would not be particularly happy. But notice what the quote says. The ultimate goal of AI is to build a person, okay? And that's not going away. People want to do that, all right? They want to build an artificial person, or more humbly, an animal. Okay, now we're at least in the realm of, sense. And is that going to be possible? Well, I got to bring my friend back here. Mark will kill me, I could start the second part of the talk based on the question, all right, people ain't gonna work. How about trying to build that Norwegian L-count in artificial fashion? That's not gonna be too easy either, but that's Rollo. And all right, it's a question, that might be where you wanna go. Stop with this notion that you're going to build a person. And so that is it for me and my slides.